Hey garden friends, welcome on back to Flower Patch. Today we're going to talk about some cottage garden inspiration with spring blooming perennials. These are hardy perennials that will come back, provide you beautiful color in the springtime in your garden. So let's get rolling. So let's talk about these spring blooming perennials. First of all, iris. Iris are some of my all-time favorites. You know that if you've come around and done or seen any of my videos of the garden tours, especially this time of year. We are in June, early June, and the iris are at their peak. They provide easy color. They come in various sizes. They could be shorter, mid-sized, taller. The bearded iris are really what I have honed in on, but there's also Dutch irises, Siberian irises, and others that are just as beautiful. The gophers ate most of mine, and I'm talking about the Dutch irises and the others. And they have been nibbling on the German bearded iris, but I have so many of them, they haven't decimated too many of my colors. So they like well-draining soil, and they'll grow in a wide range of zones. But remember, it's not all dependent on your zone. I have a video and a blog post on why there's much more than knowing what your zone is. So just keep that in mind when we talk about all of these perennials today. So next up is Nepeta or catmint. I am a new convert, really, in the last few years to Nepeta or Nepeta. It is beautiful along the borders, the shorter growing ones, and it starts about late May, early June for me. If you have a longer growing season, of course, they would have started sooner. So they have the lavender blue colors. I've never seen them in any other color than that. The gray foliage is wonderful, the texture. They all add something to the garden. And there's several sizes. There's shorter growing ones, there's taller growing ones, some that get really big and bushy. So there is one particular variety or more that you could utilize in your garden and have it come back every year beautifully. And for now, right now, the gophers have not wanted to eat it or damage it in any way. So that's a big plus. And it will continue blooming on into the summer with judicious pruning and or deadheading. So next up, number 3. Hardy geraniums, or also called cranesbill. These are a fantastic perennial that I have also, well, I've had Roseanne, my Roseanne for probably 20 years, 15 at least. And it is just a stunner in the garden. It starts blooming, some of them, depending on what kind of sunlight they get, in mid-spring. At least mine do. I'll show you some of the colors I have. I have one called Patricia, which is a fuchsia color. I have Orion, which is a blue that's very similar to Roseanne. Roseanne is a beautiful blue. The Roseanne blooms all the way through summer. It just gets bigger and bigger and more beautiful. I have one called Tiny Monster that is supposed to be shorter, but gets really tall because it loves it here. Elkie is a tiny, smaller pink one. I have Okavo, which won like Perennial of the Year a few years back. So I have several, and I have several because they work great. They spill over walls. They can be planted along a border, like a path border. They can be put towards the back, and they'll just fill in areas. And they make a great ground cover too, to choke out weeds. So it's hard to go wrong with a hardy geranium, and there's still more I want to add to my garden. There's tons of named varieties. There's one called Blue Cloud that I would love to find, but on the hunt, that's part of the fun. But it is a beautiful spring blooming perennial. What cottage garden would be complete without roses? I'm sure there's some, don't get me wrong, but I love roses. I just finished up doing a video of a rose garden. That's not too far from me, about an hour. And just beautiful. Her climate is, she has a longer growing season, so it's a bit warmer. So hers were blooming before mine. So that was earlier spring. We are now mid-spring, and mine are just beginning. And the scent is wonderful. They come back every year. And despite a few problems, I just have a few, like the needle-nosed weevils, rose weevils. I do get a little bit of powdery mildew, But other than that, they're just gorgeous, and they come back every year, and they don't take a lot of care. Unlike what some people will tell you, my roses are pretty carefree, but there's the ticket too of planting what will thrive in your area. You always have to go with that. Hybrid teas don't do well for me, so I don't grow them, but there's several other types of roses that do fantastic for me, and that's the ones I grow. Verbascum or mullein. A lot of people may not have heard of it. I just heard of it a few years back. I got one at Annie's Annuals. It was the Southern Charm, which I have in my entrance garden behind the bench. Absolutely loved it. And when I saw there was other colors, I found a violet one, and I got that one at Annie Annuals too. And then I saw one that I could grow from seed. It was called Wedding Candles, and it was a white and beautiful. Loved them all. They bloom. They're blooming now. And they come on in spring. You can deadhead them and they will keep blooming sporadically, not like constant, but they will keep on blooming as well into the summer with deadheading. And you could let them go to seed. They will spread, and you can, not voraciously, so they're easy to keep in control. But yeah, so it's one of those. I love reseeders, and we'll do a whole thing on reseeding plants that I love in the future. But verbascum, put it on your list of ones to try. Now it gets a little taller, so have it for a middle of a garden bed that you can walk around, or in the middle of a border, or towards the back of the border, whichever you prefer. Oriental poppies. I don't know if you've had a chance to see in one of my garden videos my oriental poppies, but here I'm putting up little clips, and here are mine. Now, I have been trying to get a white one from seed to grow. I have been unsuccessful so far. I have gotten peach, and I have gotten the orangey red. But they're so beautiful, and they start blooming for me quite early and bring in color when nothing else really is blooming. They're super easy to grow. They bring a bold splash of color. Even the white. The white has like a purple center that's so elegant looking, and that's why I want it. I may have to just buy one and go from there. Or every time I look for the seeds of only white, they've been sold out. So I'll keep my eye open since they grow for me very easily from seed. Foxgloves. Now, foxgloves are technically a biennial, unless you get the strawberry. There's one that's called strawberry foxglove, and that one is a true perennial. But mine, they go to seed, they come up every year, and for me they are a perennial because I don't have to replant them. They just will reseed and come up wherever they want to. It's very easy to edit out where I don't want them. They come in so many colors, and they cross-pollinate and create their own colors. And I've enjoyed them thoroughly in my garden for 20 years. I have a video on how I will spread the seeds around when they go to seed, and how I do that, and I will link that video for you. And then you can have them throughout your garden too. It is the easiest way to have foxgloves, is to reseed heavily and let them come up where they will. And where they thrive, that's what they get to stay. Yes, I do know that they can be poisonous if eaten, but if you've ever tasted one or even tried to put a leaf in your mouth, it is quite disgusting. So I don't see anybody eating them on purpose. Clematis. Clematis are beautiful climbers. There are such a wide range of colors. For me, they are a hardy perennial and come back every year. Different varieties bloom at different times. And that is even different or within pruning types. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3. And like my Bees Jubilee and my Killian Donahue I have up front, they start blooming very early on. And then my others that I have that are also type 2 pruning, they will bloom a little bit later. And the one I have with my Eden Rose, I cannot think of the name of it offhand, but it's a beautiful lavender color and just beautiful with that, with the Eden up there. It blooms later on when the Eden is blooming more. I have H.F. Young in my secret cottage garden behind me, beautiful lavender purple, and it's blooming like crazy right now as well. It started a little bit after the Bees Jubilee and the Killian Donahue, but it could be the location I have it out here, how much sun it gets, all of those. But Clematis are one of those that once they get going and have become a few years old in your soil will bloom beautifully and just carry on, and they're perfect for the cottage garden. It's super easy to take care of too. I have videos on pruning clematis, on propagating clematis, and just growing clematis. So check those out, and or blog posts, and I'll link them all in the description box below. Dianthus. Now dianthus for me are a perennial. Now there's all kinds that fit in that window of dianthus. There's the regular dianthus, there's pinks, there's sweet williams. The sweet williams usually bloom a little bit later. I've got a bunch coming up out there. They are considered a biennial, but again, they reseed themselves. And so there's a constant supply. So I'm never without them. So year after year, I have them. There are some of the dianthus in the rose cottage garden that are true perennials. They just come back themselves every year. And it's part sun, part shade there. Once that becomes full sun, I'm not sure how well they will do there. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, and that will happen when they take down the tall conifers on my neighbor's property, because they are compromised and a hazard. So it will change it will change the secret cottage garden, but my rose cottage garden dramatically in how much sun it gets during the seasons. So dianthus are another beautiful perennial for me. Forget-me-nots. Forget-me-nots, there are Chinese forget-me-nots, there's regular forget-me-nots, there's some that spread by seed, some by rhizome. Now, any of these plants I have mentioned, you want to check with your local extension office, etc., for if they are bullies or invasive in your area, because some plants that aren't invasive for me may be for you. So that is something you always want to pay attention to, no matter what anybody says. Doesn't matter what zone, etc. Different areas have different listings for invasive plants. And the forget-me-nots in some areas can be very, very aggressive, and some people consider them invasive. The certain ones. I don't know if all of them are, but like the seed ones, I think are pretty nifty, because when they're done blooming and they're looking a little sad, you can just gather up the plants that are looking yicky, and the seeds will have already spread, and they'll come up the next spring and bloom. And yeah, just all of their own volition, and it's really nice to have that. And that color blue is just really, really pretty in the garden. And it'll spread along the feet of other plants and just provide that understory. That is really neat and beautiful color in the springtime when other things aren't blooming yet. Peonies. Now, some people consider these an overrated plant. I love my peonies. I grew them even when I lived in the San Joaquin Valley, which is a zone 9, and many people say they won't grow there. Mine did beautiful, and they were so thick and lush that I had to divide them, and I shared them with lots of friends, and they did great. So again, don't go by your zone, go by how well it will do for you. And look at your neighbors' yards. And the whole reason I planted them was because I knew some elderly ladies in the town nearby, and their little yards were just filled with them. And they were telling me what a stellar plant. Now, this is when I was beginning. I was 19 years old and newly married, and I wanted a garden, and they shared things with me to put in my garden. And peonies was one of them. And yeah, so they did beautiful. Have I gone? No, I haven't mentioned rhododendrons yet. I will get to that one. But the peonies, yes, I have beautiful. I have a yellow and white one. I'm looking at some of the coral ones I would love to add. But even when mine are done blooming, they bloom for a week or two. And you might think that's very short. But the bushes themselves create a border in between the road and my garden, in the rose cottage garden. And it's just a pretty green that is a backdrop for other things that start blooming when they are done. And I just love them. And peonies are so worth it to me. The scent is gorgeous. And that's something I know that thrives here in my little area, because the homes around me that are here from the 30s and early 40s, they still have the peonies growing alive and well from way back then, and they're just stunning in the spring. So something I've just started growing the last few years, I kept seeing it on British garden shows and I just loved them, was Origeron or Santa Barbara daisies. I also have one called Wayne Roderick that I got at Annie's Annuals, and it's a California native, and it's not spring blooming like the other regular Santa Barbara daisy. It will probably start blooming in the next week or two, so I would say it's more of a summer bloomer. But back to the Santa Barbara daisy, they just bring a frothy daisy-like, I don't know, element to my garden. I've read that they can become a little bit of a bully and reseed themselves readily. I haven't had that yet. I was waiting for it. I want it to because I want to spread it around. I like that frothiness to add underneath other plants like my roses, etc. So we'll see if it will eventually naturalize in my garden. Rhododendrons, yes, I wanted to get to this because I just was reading, I think it was on Instagram, and there's a gal who had fallen in love with rhododendrons, and she says, oh, I wish I could grow them in zone 8. And I'm like, what? They grow not only in zone 8, but they grow in zone 9. And the most beautiful rhododendron garden that is magnificent is the Mendocino Botanical Garden. In fact, they have a rhododendron festival every year because their gardens are filled with the most beautiful, huge rhododendrons of all colors. And that's a zone 9. Now, it's a cool zone 9. The zones are based on the lowest winter average temperatures, not your climate through the season. So there is perfect for rhododendrons, and you'll get a longer blooming. In fact, they bloom there way before they bloom here. And it's a cool coastal climate, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area. But if you ever get to go to Mendocino, Fort Bragg, be sure to visit the botanical gardens in there. But the Mendocino Botanical Gardens. In fact, I'm dying to go back, and I hope we can make that trip again. It's about a 5-hour drive for us. But it is a beautiful area to go to, especially when it's super hot here. It will be cool there, and you'll need a jacket. Another stunning perennial for the cottage garden is lupins. Now, there are native lupins here in the mountains of Northern California, and those lupins on the East Coast are invasive. So you just need to look up, again, for whatever area you're in, for what might be considered invasive. And usually the local extension offices will have things listed as invasive or not. But the Russell lupins, the ones you can grow from seed, I think are a safer option. I'm not sure. So again, be sure and look that up. But for me, they come back readily. They will reseed, fill in, and they bloom beautifully. They are a capture crop, or I guess you'd call it, for aphids. And a lot of times if you're going to have an aphid problem, they'll attack the lupins first and draw them away from other plants. I don't worry about it too much because we have a healthy population of ladybugs, and they're taken care of, and all the other aphids in my garden are readily taken care of as well. I am an integrated pest management person, meaning that's what I rely on. I rely on the good bugs to eliminate the bad bugs because things like neem oil, etc., they also harm the beneficials, even though they're considered an organic option. So it's not necessarily 100% safe to use neem oil in your garden to eradicate pests. And you don't really want to eradicate, you want to balance it out. And so that's one thing you needed to know about lupins. Not only they come in an array of color, there's the harlequin ones that are bicolored, etc. So I want to add more lupins to my garden. I had a fuchsia one, I lost it. I don't know if I dug it up or what happened, but that's something I am going to add more of into my gardens. So creeping phlox. If you have seen my garden tours, I have creeping phlox in the front. I have a beautiful bright pink. I have the lavender, which seems to be running over everything else. And it brings really early spring color for me and blooms for a long, long time. Super easy, makes a great ground cover. It will be included in my ground cover series. I'm going to do what ground covers do really well for me and what I use them for in place of mulch, where I place them, etc. So that's up and coming. But the creeping phlox, I just bought another color. It's more of a denim blue, the flowers, and I can't wait. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put it, but I know it's going to be gorgeous in my garden. And it is another spring blooming perennial. Now, one that I have absolutely been loving, it has been blooming for weeks, is red campion. This is not rose campion, it's red campion. It's also known as silene. And this year I also included one that is a silene and it has pom-pom flowers. And I will show you a picture of it, a video of it. And I'm not sure how that one performs, but the original one that I've been sharing in my garden, Secret Cottage Garden videos, is a stellar performer. Comes back reliable, bigger and better every year. It has not reseeded itself, so if I want to propagate it, I need to do root divisions. And I've shared root dividing here on other things. And when it comes fall, I probably will root divide this one and share with you how I do that, but that's later on, like I said, towards the fall. Yeah, the next one on my list is valerian or Jupiter's beard. I have the red and the white. I love them both. I've read that it comes in pink as well, but I'm not sure about that because I haven't found it. But I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking and see. I was unsuccessful in starting valerian from seed. You know, it's a perennial, has clusters of flowers. Mine, when I deadhead it, blooms all season long. Some others, they say it's a spring bloomer and doesn't rebloom. It could be I have cooler nights, and that could be why it reblooms. And some people also claim that it reseeds for them too readily, and they consider it weedy. But for me, I haven't had that problem. I did have one reseed. I tried to dig up some of the seedlings, and I will see if they make it. I don't know. So far, I haven't had a big spread of it, but that could be because I do keep it deadheaded and it doesn't produce a lot of seeds. Columbine. Columbine is such a beautiful, delicate perennial that comes in a wide range of colors. And the blue one for me this year was particularly just gorgeous. It was ruffledy, it was more compact. Yeah, it was like somebody squished some whipped cream, blue whipped cream, onto the stem. I had a white one, also with a little touch of yellow, that was tall and on the back side of the primrose cottage. I don't know if I got a good picture of that one, but I will see. So Columbine for me has done best in partly shaded areas. So maybe, you know, that will work for you too, to plant in your cottage garden. And they bloomed a little earlier than many other perennials in my garden. So I think that's all that were on my list for today for spring blooming perennials in my garden. And I will be back later on to share with you some summer blooming perennials, and some of them may overlap. So just know that. So I hope you enjoyed this informative cottage garden idea video of what spring blooming perennials come back every year bigger and better for me in my Zone 8B garden in the mountains of Northern California, where gardening conditions can be tough. So I hope to see you in my next video. And if you have any suggestions for something else to talk about, please do leave them in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Bye. I am watching the hummingbirds fly by, zipping around here. They are just thick. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye.